Today we'll be talking about nature and our connection to all of life. I'd like to start with a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and to see if I could not learn what it had to teach me, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. I've been thinking a lot lately about our search for meaning and how it seems so deeply connected, really tangled up with our relationship to the natural world. And something happened recently, a small thing, but it hit me quite profoundly. It brought this connection home again. The other morning, very early, I was looking out the window and I saw my grandmother standing there. The sun was just coming up behind the mountain, bathing her small frame in this incredible golden light. Her eyes were closed, and she was raising her hands towards the sun, holding a simple glass of water, offering it in the sun's direction. Watching her from behind the glass, I felt, a mix of things. If we just think in purely scientific terms, the sun is a giant ball of hot gas, radiation. From that perspective, her gesture might seem a little silly even. But then I tried to see it through her eyes. For her, the sun was a giver, a generous god, you could say. She told me later, and put it quite simply, it gives us light. Its rays do everything for us. What can I do for it? There's nothing I can really do for it except maybe give it some water. There was something so wholesome about her way of seeing things. It made me reflect. Science has given us incredible knowledge, hasn't it? We're certainly smarter in many ways, but has it made us kinder? More reverent, maybe? Perhaps not always. Science helped us break free from old religious rules and dogmas, which was important, but along the way, it feels like we might have also scrubbed away some of the mystery and the sheer wonder we used to feel about life and the universe. Now, I don't believe this was science's fault or its intention. When we approach science with curiosity and openness, we discover things that actually deepen our understanding and our connection to the world. Wonder isn't something that only belongs to science, nor only to religion. It comes from within us, from having an open mind, an open heart, and being genuinely curious about our own experiences. These simple acts of reverence, like my grandmother offering water to the sun, they feel like echoes of an older wisdom, a wisdom that saw sacredness woven into the fabric of the everyday world. David Abram wrote a beautiful book called The Spell of the Sensuous. He talks about how when we really tune into the world around us directly through our senses, touching the earth, feeling the wind, watching the clouds, we can't help but feel its aliveness. Suddenly the stones, the plants, the water, they don't feel inert. They don't feel like just things. They feel like living beings. And it's partly because we start to feel ourselves as part of them, not separate. Abraham suggests that getting back in touch with our senses, with our bodies, engaging with nature, that's how we rediscover a sense of enchantment with the world. Rachel Carson, the great biologist and writer, really understood how wonder and knowledge could walk side by side. She wrote about natural processes, things we might think of just as biology, in a way that fills you with amazement if you really pay attention. Listen to the things she says about the liver. Of all organs in the body, the liver is most extraordinary. In its versatility and essential functions, it has no equal. It oversees so many vital activities that even slight damage has serious consequences. Isn't that incredible? This organ inside us does countless jobs, processing nutrients, making bile, handling metabolism, detoxification, immunity, and it can even regrow itself if it's damaged. This is one of the most amazing examples of regeneration that we know of. Thinking about the liver in this way just reveals how intricate and awe-inspiring nature's design really is. Or think about photosynthesis, something we learn about in school. Carson described it in her book, The Sea Around Us, like this. The process of photosynthesis is one of the true miracles of life on Earth. It is the means by which green plants utilize the energy of the sun to build up carbohydrates from the simple raw materials of carbon dioxide and water. In this way, the energy of the sun is captured and stored in a form that can be used by living organisms. The chlorophyll-bearing plants are the primary producers of the organic world, and from them have come, directly or indirectly, substances that feed all animals. The process of photosynthesis is the basic source of life. Without it, the world as we know could not exist. So, the way she saw photosynthesis was nothing short of a miracle, which, if you really look at it, it is. And she talks about the water cycle, something so fundamental that we barely notice it. She wrote, "The water cycle is a vast and never ending circulation that involves the whole earth and its atmosphere. Water evaporates from the clouds, forms water evaporates from the oceans, forms clouds, and returns to the earth as rain or snow. It flows in rivers, gathers in lakes, seeps into the ground, and eventually finds its way back to the sea. This cycle is essential for all life, for water is the universal solvent. It is the medium in which all complex chemical reactions of life take place. The hydrologic cycle is a unifying force, linking sea with land and the air, and maintaining the delicate balance of life on our planet. When you really stop and consider all this, the quiet wisdom of the liver, the miracle of sunlight becoming food, the endless journey of water, it's humbling, isn't it? Nature's designs are so intricate, they almost feel like magic. How these processes happen, how they keep going, sustaining themselves, it feels like it goes beyond any simple discussion or explanation. We can understand parts, yes, but the whole vast interconnected picture, it remains mysterious. And maybe that's okay. I think it's a good thing. That mystery is good because it gives us something to imagine, something to wonder about. It's like these intricate dances of life are pulsing with the planet's own heartbeat. You might have heard of something called the Schumann resonance. It's often called the Earth's heartbeat. It's this very low frequency electromagnetic wave created by lightning strikes constantly circling the planet between the surface and the ionosphere, and it's around 7.83 hertz. And then there's the Gaia hypothesis, an idea put forward by James Lovelock. And this idea suggests that the Earth, with all its living systems, the oceans, atmosphere, the plants, the animals, it acts together like one big self regulating organism, constantly adjusting things through feedback loops to keep conditions right for life. Ralph Waldo Emerson once wrote, "Nature always wears the colors of the spirit." And that spiritual coloring, it feels like it reflects a deeper truth about who we really are, about our own essence. But today, it feels like we often see ourselves just as, well, bodies revolving around work schedules made of skin, bones, fluids, and maybe some gas, maybe some smelly gas. Where has this mystical element of life gone? In our understandable desire to know everything, to have everything explained and categorized for us, have we maybe tossed out the mystery that once enriched our lives with a sense of magic? Rachel Carson asks us a powerful question, a way to shake ourselves awake. One way to open your eyes is to ask yourself, what if I had never seen this before? What if I knew I would never see it again? It's an invitation, isn't it? To see familiar things, the sun, a tree, the rain, with fresh eyes, to rediscover the wonder that routine and knowingness often hide from us. Think about ancient times. People identified the stars and planets simply by looking up at the night sky. They used their own eyes to peer into the vast darkness beyond our immediate world, gazing into what felt like the supernatural. Now, how often are our eyes used mainly to see screens? Life feels like it's slowly escaping us, slipping through our fingers while we kind of pretend not to notice. And this disconnection from wonder, this sense of things slipping away, I don't think it comes from a lack of knowledge. It seems to come more from a split within ourselves, a split between how we think and how we feel. Our minds have this tendency, where we often turn away from information or ideas that clash with our sense of who we are, our identity. Most of us, if we're honest, avoid looking where we're told not to look or where it feels uncomfortable to look. If something gets labeled New Age spirituality, for instance, many people who don't see themselves that way will refuse to even consider its message. Maybe they will dismiss it quite quickly as pseudo bullshit. Similarly, the ongoing ecological deterioration, the worsening climate change, part of why it continues is perhaps because we collectively, in many ways, refuse to truly look at it, to feel its weight. Just like that water cycle knows no real boundaries between ocean and cloud and river, maybe our own essence, our true being, flows beyond the artificial borders of our skin and our individual sense of self. Maybe who we are isn't just contained in our body, our thoughts, our ego. Maybe there's more to us. You could call it a soul. We can pretend we don't know it's there. But I really think deep down, we do know. And maybe we shouldn't limit the idea of soul just to our individuality. Perhaps our bodies exist within the soul, like we're all swimming together in its vastness. That could partly explain that deep sense of connection we sometimes feel with each other, with nature. Our identity, our true identity, might be far, far greater than we usually allow ourselves to think. But we think so much. And often it feels, well, kind of shallow, doesn't it? Disconnected. Overthinking usually happens when our thinking is cut off from feeling. Imagine thinking as a movement horizontally, spreading out flat and wide. Feeling perhaps is a vertical dimension. It has height and depth. To truly understand things deeply, to find real meaning, we likely need to connect with what we're feeling. But are we even sure what we're feeling most of the time? We're often too busy, too afraid, maybe too preoccupied with all the noise and nonsense fed to us by the media. The constant stream of fear, rage, anger, distraction, entertainment, confusion, it keeps us from thinking, or in a way, it keeps us from feeling beyond those immediate surface level interactions and reactions. And looking around, the world doesn't seem to be heading in a particularly good direction right now. I don't want this to be some sort of doomsday prediction, but we just need to look honestly at the present moment to realize that if things continue on this current path, well, it doesn't seem likely to end well. So, are we waiting for some magic pill to solve everything? Are we hoping some savior will emerge from an unknown village to fix our problems? Will the next Dalai Lama really fix the problems? If we really believe that, I suspect we might be placing our hope in the wrong place. The potential for salvation, for healing, it lies within all of us, within each of us. Perhaps we are all collectively and individually that magic pill. Our real task is to quiet down enough to discover what our soul, our deeper intuition is trying to tell us, and then find ways to heal the world, starting with ourselves, perhaps, in small and often unnoticed ways. In this time of overlapping crises, this kind of global chaos, perhaps what we really need most is silence, a space to pause, a space to reconnect with the parts of ourselves and the world that we've forgotten or ignored. Pablo Neruda wrote about this beautifully in his poem, Keeping Quiet. It goes, "Now we will count to 12, and we will all keep still. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much." Perhaps in that stillness, that pause, we might begin to see clearly what our constant motion hides. Maybe we'd see how our economic systems often mirror our own inner fragmentation, our own disconnection. The unspoken motto often seems to be, who cares about the world or the soul, right? Just focus on making money, looking at screens, maintaining status and power, keeping busy, and somehow the problem will solve itself. But the hard reality is that our current dominant economic model doesn't seem compatible with the long term survival of the earth, this living system that supports us. Even when attempts are made to include the value of natural resources in economic calculations, nature often still loses out. The core idea of unlimited human economic growth, which is central to conventional capitalism, simply doesn't mesh well with the idea of sustainable development for a finite planet. Scientists are increasingly studying humanity's impact on the biosphere, suggesting various strategies, but the underlying conflict remains. Karl Marx long ago pointed out the separation of workers from the land, from nature, as a fundamental problem within capitalism. His critique highlighted how the system tends to turn everything, nature, human labor, relationships, into commodities, things to be bought and sold, and how the drive for endless accumulation takes over. Boy, was he right. A key part of his ecological thinking was what he called the theory of metabolic rift. Essentially, how this economic system creates deep estrangement, a break between human beings and the natural conditions, the natural cycles that are the very basis of our existence. The ecological principle that nature knows best, that natural systems have their own wisdom, doesn't hold much sway under this dominant economic logic. Instead, an anti ecological principle seems to be operating. The idea that the self regulating market knows best increasingly tries to control all aspects of life. Think about food, for example. It often stops being seen primarily as nutrition, as sustenance connected to the earth, and instead becomes a source of profit. When that happens, nutritional value can easily be sacrificed for higher volumes and better yields. It can be sacrificed for a longer shelf life or cheaper production. Commercial capitalism often tends towards simplification. Large scale monocultures, specialized production, which require a very one sided use of natural resources, disrupting natural diversity and complexity. So many countries have experienced marked reduction in the nutrient levels present in their topsoil. And these system failures, these deep imbalances, they don't happen in isolation. They ripple outwards throughout human society and through natural systems. They create interconnected crises. We see how natural disasters, often worsened by climate change, can trigger or intensify social and political problems. For instance, a fascinating study looked back over 1,000 years of precipitation data, or 1,000 years of rain, in China, and showed that the country's driest historical periods often coincided with periods of political unrest and dynasty collapse, establishing a tangible historic link between climate stress and social chaos. So, if global warming really hits the fan, I wonder what will happen to us. Last year, 2024, saw record breaking global temperatures. Scientists are now saying that this might signal that the world is entering a new and more dangerous era, potentially pushing us consistently above that 1.5 degrees Celsius global warming threshold mentioned in the Paris Agreement. That number sounds small, 1.5 degrees, but it represents a critical boundary with huge implications for both people and the natural world. It's a climate state that the modern human civilization has never had to face before. And this threatens to disrupt the delicate balance that holds together all of life. Now, some of us think it's not a big deal, but with these profound changes happening, it's really no surprise that the movement to address climate change is particularly strong and passionate among young people, because they're the ones who will inherit the consequences most fully. Sometimes it seems like those of us in older generations who might be leaving this planet within the next few decades are less concerned, perhaps more resigned or complacent. I can understand that feeling on some level. The wariness or the sense of it being too late, too much, it makes sense. But does that attitude really help anyone? And does that attitude really serve life? Rachel Carson offers us another vital reminder here. The more clearly we can focus our attention on the wonders and realities of the universe around us, the less taste we shall have for destruction. She adds, wonder and humility are wholesome emotions, and they do not exist side by side with a lust for destruction. Wonder and humility. Maybe those are key. Maybe we need to consciously try to reawaken that sense of reverence, that feeling of belonging to something larger and sacred that once existed in nearly all human cultures in some form. Maybe we want to see the sun again, not just as a distant star, but as a light giving entity, perhaps even imagining it with a pure, giving soul. Maybe we might even feel moved to offer it water in the morning, like my grandmother, as a symbolic gesture to quench its perceived thirst. The question isn't really whether we should perform these specific ancient acts, but the deeper question is about reviving what those acts represented, a sense of active participation in a living, communicative world. Our actions then, whatever form they take, become a way of saying to the world, yes, I see you. Yes, I honor you. Yes, I want to help keep you alive too. Because right now, let's be honest with ourselves. It feels more accurate to say that collectively our actions are harming the world, killing it in slow motion. And in doing so, we are harming, perhaps even killing our collective selves. Rachel Carson also wrote something profound about finding truth and beauty in nature, even in harsh realities. The winds, the sea, the moving tides are what they are. If there is wonder and beauty and majesty in them, science will discover these qualities. If they are not there, science cannot create them. If there is poetry in my book about the sea, it is not because I deliberately put it there, but because no one could write truthfully about the sea and leave out the poetry. Beautiful words. And if we think about it, even death, the way it clears space, the way decay nourishes new growth, even death, seen as life's necessary partner, holds its own kind of solemn wonder. And we all know this truth, though we rarely like to admit or dwell on it. All life eventually ends in death. Part of me, the pessimist perhaps, sometimes looks at the trajectory we're on and thinks, maybe this destruction, this unraveling, maybe this was just how our human story was supposed to go. Maybe this is the inevitable end. But another part of me, maybe the realist, or perhaps the hopeful part, chooses to believe or at least hope that there is a greater understanding, a deeper wisdom guiding the unfolding of life on this planet. If this difficult, painful process is how things are meant to unfold for some larger reason, a reason that we can't yet grasp, then perhaps we have to accept it. Maybe our collective foolishness, our human folly, is kind of like scripture, a sacred text that humankind has yet to read and fully understand. Maybe this whole challenging process, as painful as it is, eventually leads to something good, something new, and some kind of transformation. Like the storms that people in older times saw as expressions of God's wrath, perhaps this too is a kind of storm passing through the collective human soul. And like all storms, it won't last forever. And neither will we. So let's reawaken our reverence for nature and our connection to all of life. Let's start seeing the world as alive and participate in its aliveness. And to conclude, I'll leave you with one of my favorite poems, Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. Thank you for listening. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese high in the clean blue air are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination. Calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.